Hello and welcome back to another episode. Today I want to share with you my rock and roll lifestyle. Well, my former rock and roll lifestyle back when I was in a couple of bands in high school at least. As I'm certain so many of us have been at some point, I was in a couple of bands in high school. And this really came out of a love of music. So often, when we're in those sort of teenage, emotional, heightened, feverish years, music is something that we're drawn towards. We all often have a favourite band, the band that's our favourite. And hopefully, as time goes on, we learn actually you're allowed to like lots of different types of music at the same time. But it's an intense time in your life, and often this reveals itself through being dedicated to the idea of being in a band, and I was one of those people. My first band in high school was called Incognito, meaning in disguise, and it didn't really go anywhere. We would play a lot of covers, sort of Nirvana, Foo Fighters, some of the old metal and guitar riff type music. Feeder was a big cover for us, or a big cover source for us. A Welsh rock band which was very popular in the late 90s, early 2000s. But beyond developing an album cover for the band as one of my art projects, it never really produced any original music. And part of the reason for this was that the band was full of arseholes, if I'm honest. I didn't know this when I started the band. In fact, I thought they were my friends. But we got to a point where I was on the drums, incidentally. I was playing the drums. I was pretty good as well. Playing the drums, and I would close my eyes as I was playing, just like listening to the music, And I remember one afternoon going into band practice and someone making a joke about, oh, Mark's going to close his eyes again. And then I sort of realised that everyone was smirking. I was like, what's wrong? And they were like, well, you're just so pretentious. You just think you're so good. You just think you're so cool. And I sort of learned that this was also attached to the fact that I also happened to get good grades as well. And sometimes I'd say, I wonder what marks we're going to get in, I don't know, in maths or in biology or whatever. And apparently that wound my friends up as well. They got really annoyed that I cared about the marks I was getting, or I wanted to talk about how we thought we were doing with our work. The sort of thing that you might want to discuss with your friends, But on that particular day, it just became very clear that they didn't like actually being in this band with me. And they didn't like the fact that I was enjoying the music and enjoying getting into it in my own way, and it all just fell apart. As so many things do when you're in that heightened emotional, feverish teenage time of your life. So Incognito lived a bright but short life, and then it went away. But it was soon replaced by another band which consisted of my brother. He was on drums this time. I moved to being lead guitar, vocals, piano, almost anything else that the music needed. And a friend of ours, a guy called Jamie, was on bass. And this band was called Uptight. Now this was the band that I'm most proud of. This is actually the band that we went to Bandfest 2003. Yep, at the Pavilion Theatre in Rhyl, or Gwil i'r Bandiau. And it wasn't. I don't think it was a Battle of the Bands competition, but I seem to recall that we went down very well when we went to Bandfest 2003. In fact, on my guitar here, there's the Access All Areas pass for Bandfest, and it was with that band that we recorded an EP. We recorded several tracks at a studio in, I think, Colwyn Bay, back in North Wales. Obviously in North Wales, that was where our life was at that point. We had a great day at the mixing desk. There was a guy basically who we had hired out for the day to help us to record and get a good balance with the music. And that is what I want to share with you today in the form of a playlist of all of the music on our EP. It was an EP called Unsettled, and the front of the album actually features some artwork that you might recognise. For example, The Paper Man from one of the books that I wrote when I was in primary school. This little paper guy he's been cut out. He's on like a background with trees and things, which also was part of my high school art at that time. So I was bringing together lots of different artistic influences for that album cover, and the whole thing is not bad. Actually, it's not bad. It's not great, but I mean, for example, here's one of my my solos. So, you know, passable, it's okay. And hopefully you'll enjoy the playlist that you can find the link for in the video description below. We would practice after school most days of the week. We would practice for hours, in fact, after school, well beyond sometimes 7 or even 8 o'clock, to the point where the department staff gave us a key for the fire escape door, so that the caretakers could lock up the school, but we'd still be able to get out of the building when we were done practicing. So, but despite this, though, we would, you know, even though we were practicing a lot, we would also often make just quite bad noise. Actually, really quite dirgy sounds, especially when we were experimenting, trying to find, you know, new sounds, new shapes. And there was an office just up the corridor from where we were practicing, which was where 2 PE teachers, Mr. Jones and Mr. Edwards, I think. No, PE teacher and a biology teacher, Mr. Jones and Mr. Edwards, and both obviously very Welsh names. They just lost their minds with us one night. They practically kicked the door in, saying, "Will you please play something that has a tune?" Because they often were in that office just up the corridor, preparing for what was called the Record of Achievement. So they, as part of their sort of extra duties, they were gathering together, almost like I suppose a high school yearbook, but it's a different thing. So in high school, I don't know if it's still a thing, but certainly at that time, every student would have a record of what they'd achieved in terms of exams, comments from key teachers, certificates like swimming, and any additional things that might turn up. I mean, I'll dig mine out. You can see what I mean. So they were preparing all of that, like thousands of documents, over the course of every single year for, as it were, graduation every single year. And I don't blame them now. Looking back, I probably am now as old as they were then. And I can see why they might just one day just go, just kick in the door. "Will you please stop the noise?" Anyway, now the band Uptight did come to an end when I went off to university. In fact, 2003, when we had the Bandfest appearance, was in my sort of gap year, building up to me going off to university. And when I did, money was tight, and I actually ended up selling my guitar, this guitar here, and I didn't see it for 5-6 years maybe. I replaced it eventually with an acoustic guitar that I still have upstairs, but I didn't think I'd see this guy ever again until it turned up in a sort of really seedy junk and house clearance store on Pilgrim Street in Newcastle. People who are local may recognise the store I mean. I'm not sure. I don't think it's still there anymore. It was really dodgy. Like, really, if I had this sort of, everything was just stacked up high. Everything was a bit dirty. There was like an aroma of cigarette smoke in the air as you went in. All the windows were blocked out because of all the junk that was in the place. And I just saw this guy wedged up against the window, like someone, you know, in a cartoon or something where there's been like a foam explosion behind them. They're like against the window. I was like, that's my guitar. So I went in and said, you know, trying to be casual. I didn't want to seem as though I wanted it too much. The guitar in the window. How much is that? And I managed to sort of negotiate him down a bit. I can't remember how much I paid for it, but it wasn't a ton of money. And before I knew it, this wonderful electric guitar, K apparently is the manufacturer, was back in my life. So it's funny how these things come full circle as well. I genuinely thought I'd never see it again, and yet here it is, and I love it. So hopefully this has been a little bit of an insight into my band experience. The band actually went on a little bit beyond me. My brother Jamie and a chap called Tom, a mutual friend of ours, who was a part, you know, a sometime collaborator. He definitely was often involved in the band practices and, you know, having a laugh and writing lyrics, this kind of thing. He went on then to be lead guitar and vocals in a new band called Plantfoot. And I'm really proud to say that Plantfoot, when I was in my first year at uni, I think, so 2004, 2005, Plantfoot went to play at the Cavern in Liverpool, the club that's famous for being one of the places where the Beatles got their start. So that was really nice, actually, a little bit of band lineage ending up at the Cavern in Liverpool itself. Yep. But anyway, that's me. That's me and my rock and roll lifestyle. Will I ever get back into music again in any meaningful way? I don't know. It's difficult to find the time to bring random blokes or, you know, guys and gals together to make new music when you're sort of, you know, 36-ish. But never say never. And that said, though, I did in high school in between bands. So between Incognito and Uptight, I was making my own music. I was doing some solo projects, which I also have on my computer, and I may well make public in the future. They're okay. They're much more experimental. They're much more sort of radio-heady, if I'm honest. But they're okay as well, actually. So if you like this stuff in the playlist below, I may make that public as well. We'll see. Anyway, I've yabbered on for long enough. Hopefully you, at the very least, get a bit of a chuckle out of this playlist. And if you like any of the songs, let me know. Comment. Don't be shy. But don't criticise too much, because I'm not sure I could take it.
I mean, what if they say I'm no good? What if they say, get out of here, kid, you got no future? I mean, I just don't think I can take that kind of rejection.
Thank you for watching, guys. As ever, until next time, do take care. Bye-bye.